Welcome, everybody. I'll start by introducing, myself, I'm Meg Staloff. I'm with Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, BDCC, and my program is called the Southern Vermont Economy Project. And what we do is help build capacity across Southern Vermont by connecting people in our region to resources, to each other, and just to help move community projects forward. And we recognize that community development and economic development are really closely linked. And so building capacity for all the things and doing it together is really important. So my work is supported by a grant from the USDA. We have a Rural Community Development Initiative grant that pays for partially funds our work. So we always thank them for believing in us and letting us do this critical work. So all these Knowledge Bites webinars, we do them, at lunchtime so people can take them in. They're pretty quick. They deal with sort of timely resources, things you need to know right now. We record them and I will post this to the website. I'll email the recording to everyone who registered for this event. So you'll get it right away, and that will include links and things like that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Michele Bailey, who's joining us today. Thank you so much, Michele. She is with the Vermont Arts Council, and she's here to talk to us about many grants. So she's a senior program manager, and she can tell us a lot about these. And if things are not her program, she can tell you who is person to connect to. And I think, connecting directly with funders, with projects is super, super important. So don't hesitate to reach out. So Michele, why don't you take it away and tell us about the upcoming and open grant opportunities?
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yes. And thanks for inviting me, Meg. It's great to be able to share our resources with the folks from time to time here. And it is our grant season at the Arts Council. So we have a lot of grant opportunities coming up. It's not everything that we offer, but there are a number of them that I thought might apply most directly to this group. So the mission of the Vermont Arts Council is to cultivate and advance the arts and creativity throughout Vermont. And we do this through a number of programs and services. And as I mentioned, I'm just going to be sharing a little bit about 5 grant programs that we're currently offering or soon to be offering at the Arts Council. And so some of them may apply to you, some of them may not apply to you. I'm not really covering individual artist grants or schools grants, but kind of more of our organizational type funding opportunities. So I'm going to go just through these 5 programs really quickly with just like 3 or 4 slides for each program. And then I'm just going to open it up for conversation and questions. So by all means, just make note of a question if you have one as we're going, and we will have time at the end for any questions you might have. And I encourage you to call me if you have more specific questions that you want to directly talk about rather than sharing with the whole group. I welcome those conversations and the emails and phone calls as well. So to start off, I'm going to just talk a little bit about what we call our arts project grants. For those of you who may have been aware of the Arts Council's programs in the past, this is formally known as our Arts Impact Grants. They're the same thing. We just decided to kind of simplify and more directly name the grant program. So these are project grants that support Vermont nonprofit organizations, municipalities, and schools in their efforts to add vibrancy to Vermont communities by providing equal and abundant access to the arts. So it is open to Vermont nonprofits, and they can be arts nonprofits or non-arts nonprofits, as long as you're doing an arts project. Municipalities and schools can apply for project grants. If you have a group like a neighborhood association or just a group of folks who want to do a project, you can also apply by using a tax-exempt fiscal agent. And if this is your situation, just reach out to me. I can help you figure that out as well, but just wanted you to know that's a possibility. The grant awards range from $1,000 up to $4,000 maximum, and there is no match required. The kinds of things that we fund are performances, exhibits, readings, fairs, public art projects and festivals that focus on including new audiences. We do fund public art projects for commissioning of an artist for the creation of new work in a community where there's really a lot of community engagement. Any kind of creative experiences that are designed for specific groups or certain ages, like diverse income, gender, race, or ability, and to encourage interaction among those groups. And then finally, accessibility accommodations for those arts events that might help enable, people with disabilities to participate in those programs. So the funds could be used for like a sign language interpreter or other things like that for that programmatic access. We do have some program priorities, which are basically kind of in alignment with the criteria and the program purpose. So it's nothing really new here, but providing equal and abundant access to the arts, expanding access to the arts and cultural activities for all Vermonters, and then creative placemaking projects as well. So the deadline for this grant program is coming up on May 15th. It's an online system that we use for applications. So the online system will be open until 11:59 p.m. that day. Staff generally is away and not available after 5. So just make sure if you have questions, you're not waiting until that very last piece of the day to get those questions answered. We'll notify you by the end of August, and any project that we fund must happen between September 1st of 2023 and August 31st of 2024. I'm going to be doing a grant seeker workshop about these grants coming up next week on April 11th, where we'll dig much more deeply into the guidelines, the application process, etc. So you can make that note on your calendar too. Forgot to look it up. I think it's at 2 o'clock, but it's on the 11th and it's on our website. So, and I know Meg has got some links. She'll drop the links to the pages on the in the chat as well. So
I'll just jump in and say I did put a link to each of those pages in the chat. So that's in there, and I'll look up I can get a link to the to that webinar, and I'll put that in as well.
Great, thanks. So I'm just, like I said, going to run through each program a little bit. We are also offering operating grants, and these arts operating grants are really intended to fund arts organizations, 501c3 tax exempt organizations, even organizations that don't currently have a tax exempt status, but have a fiscal agent, or municipal arts agencies where the primary stated mission is to serve the arts. And you have to offer year-round high quality arts programs and services to be eligible for these arts operating grants. Like I mentioned, you really do have to be an arts organization where your primary mission is year-round programming of the arts. If that is not the case, then I would suggest you apply for a project grant, because you can only apply for one or the other in this case. So arts projects or arts operating grants, you have to pick one of these. And if you have any trouble deciding or aren't sure, just let us know. We can help you figure that out. But within the operating grants, there are kind of 2 categories of operating opportunities. One is a 1-year operating grant with the funds ranging from, again, $1,000 up to $4,000. And this would be for our fiscal year 24. Again, that same grant year, September 1 of 23 to August 31 of 24. And the applicants who are eligible, if any of the following applies to you, you can apply for that 1-year operating grant as long as it's part of your mission. So you have an annual operating revenue of less than $25,000. You have operated for fewer than 5 years and have at least 1 year of financial data as of December 31st, 2022, and you have no paid staff. Those are the kinds of eligibility criteria we're looking at. If you're an organization that has been around a lot longer, we do offer this operating grant as a 3-year operating grant with funding between $3,000 and $9,000 each year for a 3-year period beginning in September of 2023. But this does require a match of a 3-to-1 non-federal funds. And then applicants who apply in this 3-year operating grant category must have an annual operating budget of over $25,000, that you have been operating continually for 5 years as of August 31st, 2023. And then you have at least one half-time paid staff member, and you'll plan to retain that half-time staff member throughout the grant. So the funds can be used to support your mission rather than specific projects or programs, things like working capital that you need to sustain day-to-day operations, as well as payroll, rent, utilities, insurance, those kinds of things. That deadline is coming up May 8th. There was a grant seeker workshop just for that last week, I believe, and a recording of that is on our website if you're interested in watching that. Again, you'll be notified in mid-August, and those funds will be available starting September 1st through the August 2024, and then you'll have a first year report due. So you'll be needing to report on each year of those funds, but you'll be getting a 3-year operating grant. If you have any questions about this, this is one of those programs that I do not administer. We have a woman on staff named Kathy Mulvaney. Her contact information is here, and you can set up an appointment to chat with her if you are at all unsure if you meet the criteria or should be applying in this category. I encourage you to reach out to her, and I'm sure she'd be happy to help you. You can also reach out to me, but I know less about that program and more about the project grants. So next up, I also administer our animating infrastructure grants. We, through those grants, they support the design and creation of public art in community infrastructure projects, and which we want to help communities meet goals of livability, walkability, safety, economic vitality, and community vibrancy. The grants are eligible to Vermont 501c3 nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, municipalities, and again, community groups where you may not have a nonprofit, but you can use a fiscal agent if you have a group of folks who want to pull together a project and do it. We have 2 categories for grants in this program. We have kind of what we call a design grant, where you might want to work for a year with an artist to actually develop the design for a piece of public art or a public art project in your community. Those grants are maximum of $5,000. And then we also have an implementation and combo grant where you could do a combination of both design and implementation. And those grants, maximum amount is up to $15,000. And these do not require a match as well. We fund, like I said, projects where there is a community engagement element to a public art project and design work in the community. All eligible project pitches are welcome. There's kind of a 2-part process to the application, which I'll go over in a minute, but we're especially interested in projects where infrastructure is the art. So functional kinds of art that could also be sculptural or structure, have a function. Projects that are in their early planning phases, if you have a streetscape project in your community or some other kind of renovations to a park or a building, and you want to get the artists involved early, we are really encouraging those kinds of projects. And then also projects that foster those connections among people with diverse financial, educational, health, employment, or social resources, people with diverse abilities, from diverse races, cultures, genders, or ages, where we really want to foster those social connections. So the timeline for this next upcoming round, we used to do them in the fall. We are shifting to the spring, and this is a tentative timeline because as of today, I hadn't quite confirmed all the dates yet, but we're within just a few days of confirming these. So I've written tentative on here because you want to double check to make sure that this is what will be the final dates once it gets live on our website. But what we do is a 2-part process. We invite communities to do a pretty quick project pitch to our review panel. So basically, describing your your community infrastructure project, how you might envision a public art being integrated into it, who some potential partners are, and then some images. We don't require a budget or even a lot of formal documentation at that point. We just want to hear those community pitches, which our review panel will review, and then select probably 8 to 10 of those project pitches where we will invite those organizations or groups to do a full proposal. That full proposal is a little more of a public art planning document, so you'll have a lot more detail to work out, partners to acquire, those kinds of things. Those cross-sector partners are important. That community engagement is important. So kind of thinking through all that. And those would be due in September, and then we'd notify in October. So you'd have a year between October 23rd and of 2023 and October of 2024 to basically do that work. So like I said, it's really tentative right now, but it should be pretty close to this once we get it finalized. And the next program that I also oversee is called Cultural Facilities Grants. These grants provide critical funds to nonprofit organizations and municipalities to enhance, create, or expand the capacity of an existing facility to provide cultural activities to the public. So in order to be eligible, you have to have an existing facility that's at least 10 years old, that is physically located in Vermont, is owned and operated by a nonprofit or a municipality, and the applicant should be the building owner, and that you should be able to provide evidence of cultural programming and activities that you provide to the public, or at a minimum evidence that if whatever work you do to the building would provide a space for those activities. And I usually do grant seeker workshops for these every year. I did one in March, I think. Anyway, that recording is on our website right now as well, if you want to dig deeper into the ins and outs of applying. But these grants range from $1,000 to $30,000, and they do require a 1-to-1 match. And these grants are from this, the source is the state capital budget. So we do, these grants are what we call reimbursement grants. So you'd have to complete the work before you actually got the funding. But the types of things that we fund are upgrades to electrical wiring and fire alarm systems. We've done HVAC renovations to provide air quality, heating systems, etc. We do a lot of ADA compliance with accessible restrooms, elevators, and walkways. We do hazard mitigation measures, things like rain gutters, floodgates, sprinkler systems, etc. We also fund fixed equipment, such as theatrical lighting and audio, where the equipment is really kind of affixed or attached to the building in some way. We can, I talk about that in the application as well. And then environmental upgrades. If you are, let's say, a historical society and you have a collection that is needing some environmental protection, like maybe there's too much mold, or you need to keep it at a certain humidity or temperature, those environmental upgrades would also be eligible if you have a collection or exhibition that is in need of that environmental care. It's not about the care of the collection or repair of the collection itself, but more the environment. So the deadline for this program is coming up very quickly. It's on May 1st of 2023. We will notify folks by the end of August, and then any funded activity has to take place between September 1st again of 2023 and August 31st of 2024. So like I mentioned, these are reimbursement grants. The thing with this program is that we do require, there's a lot to the application. The two kind of really critical things is whatever you're applying for, we do ask for estimates to be included in your application. And you know, given our construction world and the supplies and materials shortages or just delays, it can take a long time to get an estimate. So you may or may not be able to pull this together for this year, but if you have any questions, reach out to me, and or think about maybe for next year as well. That's a possibility. As long as the legislature does fund it. They do like this program, and we thank them for their support of this program and many of the other building communities grants programs. But if it's too tight to pull together now, you could do it in another in another round of next year. So the last thing I'm going to talk about really quickly, because I really don't know a whole lot about the details of the application on this one, but I wanted to share it with you as an opportunity. It's called the Creative Futures Grant Program. This one is a program that was to support the recovery of Vermont's creative sector from the COVID-19 pandemic and to set a path forward for growth. It was made possible by a grant from the state of Vermont through the Agency of Commerce and Community Development and the Department of Economic Development. And it's a one-time program. So the eligibility requirements really, you have to have creative economy businesses and nonprofits that have sustained substantial losses due to the pandemic. It could be nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations, including sole proprietorships, which are part of Vermont's creative sector. And on our website, we do have a definition of the creative sector. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail on all of that right now, but there are specific definitions to the creative sector. Again, experiencing continued economic harm due to the pandemic. You have to be located in Vermont, fewer than 500 employees, in operation or had taken steps toward becoming operational as of March 13th, 2020. Or if you were created as a new creative sector business after March 2020 due to the pandemic and changes, that you have documented income from qualifying creative sector work. The types of economic impacts due to the pandemic would include loss of decreased revenue, lost space, increased costs, risk of permanent closure, challenges meeting payroll or other financial obligations, staff layoffs, unplanned use of savings, reserves, or endowments, or other situations. And then the funds may be, if you're awarded, may be used for regular operating expenses, including but not limited to payroll and benefits, utilities, rent, mortgage, insurance, etc. Most businesses and nonprofit grant amounts will be based on a formula relative to your 2019 operating expenses. There's a tiered system, and the maximum grant award for larger organizations would be $200,000. We've gone through 2 rounds of this funding already, and we do have one last round of funding available. That program will open up again on May 1st and will be open and available for you to apply through June 30th, and with notifications in mid-August. So if you have any questions about eligibility or criteria, I would suggest that you reach out. Again, this is overseen by our Creative Futures staff, Kathy Mulvaney. You can reach out to her or Amy Cunningham, our interim executive director, through this Creative Futures at vermontartscouncil.org email or this phone number here. So lots of opportunities to learn more, but that's a quick overview of that program as well. So I'm going to stop there. That's a very fast overview of all of these grant programs. Here's my contact information up on the screen. We can open it up for questions now. And I will stop sharing. I think it'll be easier if I stop sharing.
And I just wanted to say, here, I can turn myself back on here. Here I am. I just wanted to say I put a lot of this in the chat, so that will come. It's in there. You can get links to who you should call and ask questions. And I just, I feel like some of this, it's like, right, if you haven't started preparing for the Cultural Facilities Grant Program for this year, that's a big one. Don't despair. Like, that is a yearly program, and you should just put it in your head that you need to think about it for next year, if it's appropriate for you. Can I ask a question? I had a question. So if you were a new kind of startup organization, it's sounding like rather than you can't apply for the operating grants, it sounds like to me. So if you're a new startup organization, it would be, you could support some of your startup work through a projects grant. Am I hearing that? Like if you wanted to say, we want to kick off this new arts organization by doing XYZ project, you could apply for funding through that program, but not the operating grants program.
Correct. And that would be the budget that you would put together for that project grant would be not for operating costs, but the specific costs related to that project. So are you paying for an artist? Is there space rental? Are there promotional community engagement activities, materials, those kinds of things related to that specific project that you would put together in your budget? But of all the projects that I listed here, of programs that I talked about here, you'd have to choose between an arts project or an arts operating grant. You couldn't get or apply for both of those in this year. You'd have to pick one. That's why I'm suggesting with the deadline of May 8th for operating and 15th for arts project grants, that if you are thinking about doing that, you might want to talk to Kathy Mulvaney about the operating grants. And I can talk to you about project grants and then make your decision as to where you might fit. If you are a mission-driven arts organization for those operating grants. Of the other ones, the animating infrastructure, cultural facilities, and creative futures grant, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria, you could apply for and receive any of those or all of those. So there's no restrictions as to, either or on those categories.
Great. Anyone else have direct questions? Do people have projects in the pipeline? Just hopefully, always, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
I was really curious on the I can't remember the one that is really intended. You just said that it would be coming out in June. The one where you do a pitch, and then if you make it to the next level, you do another pitch. Could you talk about, like, could some type of a pavilion structure that engaged the community in design and or construction and or, so it's not a building, just like an arbor, kind of or a rooftop structure like a pavilion, would that be something that could fit in there?
Well, it could fit into a project like that. This is a public art kind of activity, so you might be integrating artistic elements into that pavilion or gazebo or whatever it might be, with some sculptural elements or painting or some functional elements like an artist or craftsperson design railing, those kinds of things. It's really not about the architectural design of it, but integrating public art into those kinds of things would be okay.
And would you have to have already had a process that would have selected the artists, or could that still be kind of open in your application?
Yeah, the artist selection process is and can be part of those grants. So you don't have to have the artist identified either at the time that you pitch your project. If you are selected and you have an artist already identified, that's fine too. But if you don't, you can just propose a process for selecting the artist, for working with that artist to develop the designs. I think there may still be our grant workshop online from this just last, our FY23 fiscal year, still online. So you could take a look at that if you're interested. We'll be updating that later, but just to give you a sense of it. But yes, I think, does that answer all your questions, Kathy?
Yes, it's just something that people have been talking about, and it's hard to figure out where it lands.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a chance for something to, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Forward a little.
I'll jump in with my grant seeker hot tip. They always list previously funded projects. And so that's a really great way to sort of say, does my idea jive with the idea of what this grant is looking for? So that's something really great to look through. I always say that if you're like, is this a good fit? Look there. That's a great place to start.
That's a great idea, Meg, because we do list all of our grantees from the past 4 or 5 years on our website. So
thank you. That is super helpful. And I'd be nothing if my mouth wasn't full of my lunch.
But anyway, that's always the hot tip, is say like, hey, I have this idea. And did they fund something like this before? I want to put in a plug for the Creative Futures that's opening up on May 1st. If you know people that operate creative businesses, would you please join me in begging them to apply? Because, I think sometimes creative businesses are not good about saying, whoa, I could get some help here. People get used to going it alone and struggling through. And so I'm hoping that we can, if you know who those people are in your world, if you work in the arts world, I'm sure you know them. And so, bug a friend about applying for that. If you think about it, that's sort of, I've been doing too. So just like the bug a friend campaign to say, hey, this is available, and just to raise awareness. I mean, part of what we're trying to do today is raise awareness about these are opportunities that are available, whether they're yearly or they're one time, and you should be building them into your thought process, as a community, as an organization. So that's my
and that Creative Futures grant program is a one-time program, and it's, I think, one of the first times we've ever been able to support creative businesses, for-profit businesses. Typically, our grant funders restrict us to nonprofit businesses. So there's a whole range of potential businesses that we've not connected with in the past that we really want to support. So while we still have some funds left, reach out and find out more information from our staff who organize and run that program.
Yeah, everyone wants that money to go to the people it's intended for, right? So
that's right. We don't want to have to give anything back. So
right.
share the information, please.
And that's a Creative Futures. I'm gonna drop that in the chat as well, because I think I put them all in the beginning, but just so so reach out to a friend today with that one. So yeah, so hopefully, does anyone else have any questions? Certainly connect with Michele if you have projects that you're thinking about. Don't hesitate to, connect with your creative network people in Southern Vermont. Don't hesitate to reach out to the Southern Vermont Economy Project. I will, this was intended to be just sort of a quick resource. I forgot to go in and go to my website and I'll drop in where this will be posted. Actually, I'll email it all to you. So never mind. I will send an email that says, here's the recording, here's where it's posted. Please, share it with friends, share it with people you think should see it. We'll share it with people who, registered and weren't able to make it. The idea is to get this information out there and connect you to your funders, because it's really important. I have to say, as someone who in a past job did a Vermont Arts Council grant, Michele was amazing. And I worked with the community doing an animating infrastructure grant. And it was really, really helpful to have that connection as we were kind of feeling our way through doing something that hadn't been done in the community before around art. It was super helpful. So make that connection. And you see her face now, so you know who she is. You can reach out to her directly.
Thank you, Megan. We do encourage people to call us or email us if you're not sure about any of these programs, or even if you just want to get some tips. Sometimes our role as staff is really to help you put together the strongest application that you can. We don't review them. We have outside reviewers. So our role is to try to help you put together a strong application. And so especially when it comes to animating infrastructure, cultural facilities, those are a little more, the cultural facilities grants particularly are a little more complex. So I really urge people to call me and reach out, because we don't want you to go through a long process of putting together an application if it's something that's really not a good fit or won't be very competitive, or for whatever reason. So I encourage you to reach out for sure. And I also want to share, in the interest of sharing other programs, if you go to our website and look around, I didn't go over them today, but we do have grants for individual artists for creating new work and artist development. We also have grants for schools to bring teaching artists into school for a school residency. We also have a new program this year around creative aging that we just funded, and we're looking for additional funding to try to keep that program going. So there's other things that are programs and services that we offer that, even if they may not apply to you, if you want to share information with folks you know, that would be great. And then also, just in terms of resources, we have a monthly newsletter that we send out. We have classified ads. So if you're trying to reach out to, for example, if you were doing an animating infrastructure grant and you wanted to reach artists, our call to artists page on our classified section is one of the more frequently visited pages on our website. So there's that. We have an arts calendar, we have an arts directory. There's a whole lot of resources on our website that I didn't go through today. So just thought I would mention all of those things for you or anybody that you might know who might be interested.
Well, if no one has further questions directly as part of this conversation, we can wrap it up, and you got your lunch in, and we like to keep these short. So I'll share the recording. I'll send it out, share it with your friends, and please feel free to reach out to anyone, to my program, to Michelle. We'll include all that information in that email when it goes out for you. So we really appreciate you coming here and getting, just the more we communicate, the word will get out. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.